Good evening, everybody. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first of all, the shir is for a refuah shlema for Eliana Esther Bas Chana and Chaim Isser ben Sarah Gittel. Okay, the should be a refuah shlema for Kol HaCholim. All right, so I last week, well, let's do number one is Emes Yaakov. We're going to do a piece from Yaakov, which I think is very special. The opening pasuk of Parshat Chukat, Zot Chukat HaTorah, V'yikru elecha Parah Aduma. So it gets down to Torah, gets right down to business. This is the chuk of the Torah. We know the chuk is the mysterious mitzvahs of the Torah. This is the Chukas HaTorah, is the Parah Aduma. Parah Aduma, we know, is a strange mitzvah. It's we take a red heifer, and we kill it. We take hyssop, we take ashes, we put it together, and it's used. This combination is used to be mitaher someone who is tamei meis, right? It's to purify him. The question is the following that Rabbi Yaakov is going to deal with. We know that at Mara there was an introduction to Torah. The introduction to Torah were three mitzvahs were given to Yisrael: Shabbos, Kibud Av V'Eim, and Parah Aduma. So what Rabbi Yaakov is going to deal with is why Parah Aduma? We understand Shabbos and Mara and Parah and Kibud Av V'Eim. That's what he's going to deal with. Okay, let's see. Pirush Rashi Zal, Lefi she'hasaton v'umos ha'olam monin es Yisrael lomar ma mitzvah zot. So the nations of the world say, what is this mitzvah all about? Uma tam yesh ba, what's its reason? Leficha kasaba chuka. Therefore, it's called a chok. A chok means gezerah. It's a decree. No questions asked. Lefanai. Gezerah hi lefanai. Ein lecha reshut leharher achareh. Ad kan lashona. That's Rashi. You can't question this. This is a mitzvah. I'm giving it to you. It's a gezerah. That's it. Near it would appear the ikra shel Parah Aduma hi dineha. So it would seem that the essence of the mitzvah is all the dinim with regard to Parah Aduma, how it's done, how the Kohanim get it going. Shehi mitaheret tameim umitamet tahorim. It's kind of a strange situation because the Parah Aduma, some of you might know, the Kohanim who are involved in it become tamei themselves when they're mitar the individual who is tamei, and they have to wait till nightfall to become tahor. The essence of the mitzvah is the laws, the do's and the don'ts. Do this, do this, do this. Not the mitzvah. Not that it's a mitzvah to purify the impure person, but the essence of the mitzvah is following the script. Okay? Sha'al zeh Amar Shlomo HaMelech said in Kohelet, Amarti achkama v'hi rechoka mimeni. You know, I said about Chochmah, I tried to learn all of the Torah. Shlomo HaMelech chacham mikol adam. Shlomo HaMelech was the smartest of the world. He had everything, but one mitzvah he didn't understand. That's Parah Aduma. Gezerah gazarti, fuka chakakti, ve'ein li reshut laharer achareha. The Rebbeinu Shalom established a gezerah. He gave us a gezerah. It was a chok, a mysterious mitzvah. Ein lecha reshut laharer achareha. You have no permission to start going after the reason for this particular mitzvah. Hayesod shel so hainu hi hayesod shel avoda miyira. This is the essence of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with awe, right? With yira, with fear, on the lowest level of fear, but it means standing back and accepting my responsibility to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be an Eved Hashem. So I want to bring you what the Sefer HaChinuch brings. Sefer HaChinuch is one of the Monei HaMitzvot, brings the Taryag mitzvahs with, and he always gives the reason for the mitzvah, right? The Sefer HaChinuch, by the way, I might have mentioned in the past, was written by a Rishon, and it was written for his son, so that he would not waste his time on Shabbos afternoon. He wanted him to learn the Sefer HaChinuch on Shabbos afternoon, right? In fact, kind of a PS, we in my shul in Toronto, that's the sefer that we give out. We've given out for years to the bar mitzvah boys and the bat mitzvah girls. is the Sefer HaChinuch. In any case, the Sefer HaChinuch says the following, V'zeh Lashona, quote, Afal pi shemilaini levavi lichtov ramazim mitame mitzvot. My minig is always to give you a reason for the mitzvah, a hint, a reason for the mitzvah, shekidmu al tzad pshat, which seems to apply to the essence of the mitzvah the way it's presented. The mitzvah zu rafu yodai. I wipe my hands away from it. I'm not going to give you a reason for the mitzvah paraduma. V'ira lifatzot po peh aleha. I'm keeping my mouth shut. Klal. Im bipshat ki ra'iti l'rabotenu. Why? Because I saw that the rabbis, the Chazal, remember the Chinuch has a Rishon himself. I saw that the Chazal, the Tanaim, the Amoraim, ha'erichu b'dibur omek so b'dibur b'omek soda. That they spoke about the depth of the essence, the foundation of this mitzvah, the godel in yana, how great it is. Remember, it purifies someone from death. It sort of brings somebody back to life. That's the essence of taharas, the tumah of mace, to bring someone back to life, kind of, right? An she'amru Hamelech Shlomo hisig ledat ribu chachmaso, that Shlomo HaMelech himself tried to understand it. Kol tamei HaTorah, he gave a reason for all the mitzvahs, chutz mizu, except for this mitzvah. Shehamar aleo, he said, Amarti ach kama v'hi rechoka mimeni. We saw that, we quoted that. Ulechura hu tamua. I don't understand. Ki b'chol hatamim, Rav Yaakov asks, shekosav b'sifra, that the Sefer HaChinuch wrote in his Sefer, achi Allah b'dato shezeu tam ha-mitzvah. How can he be sure that each one was the reason for the mitzvah? V'ha'anan leist on the Rebbe Shimon. She dorish time of Dekra. There's a whole machlokas in the Gemara. The Gemara in actually in the end of Bava Metzia. Those who were learning Daf Yomi saw this Gemara not long ago. Whether we're darshan Tami Dekra, whether we try to give a reason to a mitzvah that's in the pasuk or not. But Ela Vadai Aliba the Rebbe Shimon, according to this Rebbe Shimon, the Leike Hatam Shenatna Din HaMitzvah, there's no tam given for the mitzvah. Kamo, but if there's a reason given, Kamo, for example, right? That's where there's no reason given. Kamo Almona Ashira Memashkinoto. There's a mitzvah that if someone owes you money, right? You have a loan outstanding, right? So you can take a mashkin, you can take a collateral and hold on to the collateral. But the collateral has to be returned. If you take someone's thing, the pillow and blanket that they need at night, you have to return it. If it's something they need during the day, you have to return it to them during the day. That's the way it works. Kamal Mona Ashira, the Mashkinoto. But let's say you have a widow. You're not supposed to take for a widow, an aniyah, poor widow, you don't take a mashkin because you're going to have to keep going back to her and it's going to give her a bad reputation. They're going to see someone coming and going to her house, this fellow, right? But a wealthy widow, you don't have to return the mashkin. You can take a mashkin, right? So that's the Reb Masha'en came with them, but for us, kisha'anu omrim tam the mitzvah. If we say a reason for a mitzvah, hainu kishanu mekayim ota narviach mizeh gam tam musari. Maybe there's a reason why we keep the mitzvah, right? Vimkein mayich patlan. What do we care? Im nasa kein bepara. So let's have some kind of a reason for the paraduma. What's wrong with it? Avalafima shekasavti sheshlomo chidish. So really maybe I can come up with a reason for the mitzvah, right? Something that's so obvious in the pasuk. Well, like by the widow, that's something else. But here, let me come up with something, right? No, the whole idea of this mitzvah is not about the mitzvah. It's about the dinim. It's about the order of the mitzvah, following the orders, the laws of the mitzvah. So the whole reason to fulfill the mitzvah, right? This is the essence, is following the order of the Rebbeinu Shalom to do the mitzvah, and the mitzvah is secondary in a certain sense, right? That's what he says. Now with this, he wants to explain why this is one of the three mitzvahs that were given at Baruch. V'zehu mevinim anu hetev lama bachar Hashem yisborach dafka parshas Porah Aduma litna liYisrael b'mar. Now we can understand why Porah Aduma was one of the three major mitzvot that were given to Klal Yisrael as an introduction, a taste, if you will, of Torah. Ubishlama Shabbos v'kiburav, Shabbos and kiburav. Well, we know Dinish and Osnalem b'mara move on. That makes sense, right? You can say very simply, Shabbos is an extreme expression of Ben Adam leMakom, the mitzvahs between man and God, the mitzvah of Shabbos, and Kibbutz Ve'im is a headline mitzvah between man and man to honor parents, right? Umishum sheratza shehem yikaimu eze mitzvot lamaisa, that we should do certain mitzvahs, gave us these mitzvahs to do. V'yoter muchanim al yedei zeh lekabbalas haTorah lekiyum mitzvot mitzvotah. It would be easier for us when we get involved in both concept of Ben Adam leMakom and Ben Adam lechavero. Then the acceptance of Kol Torah Kula becomes an easier thing for us to accept. Aval Porah Aduma, Adayin Porah Aduma, Iyevshar Hayelakaim. How can we can't even do it? Daha V'Inan Bishvil Zeh Oral Moed. We don't have the Beis Hamikdash, right? Most of Jewish history, there's no Oral Moed. Upischo Shel Hechel Kedoma, the sprinkling the blood at the doorway of the Hechel. V'imkein Matam Masralem. So why this mitzvah? It's a mitzvah that is only for certain in idyllic times when we have the Beis Hamikdash Yavu B'Meheru Yameinu. Aval Biur Hadavarhu. Let me explain. Kemosha Diktek Rashi, the Parshas B'Shalach. Rashi says in Parshas B'Shalach, Natan lahem miktzat parshiot shel Torah. This is what he said about the mitzvahs that were given at Mara. I want to give them mitzvahs, miktzat parshiot shel Torah. Rashi doesn't refer to it as mitzvahs. He calls a number of 3 parshiot of Torah. Sheyit'asku behem, that they should engage in those chapters of Torah. That's how he's referring to these 3 mitzvahs. Kolomar, meaning, Ikar HaKavana, the main intent of giving these 3 mitzvahs, Haita Limud HaTorah. It was Limud HaTorah. B'li Kiyum HaMitzvot, without necessarily fulfilling the mitzvah. To study the laws of Shabbos, to study the laws of Kibbutz Aveim, to study the laws of Porah Aduma. Elarak sheyizkavnu lekabbalas haTorah al yedei limuda, to accept Torah by virtue of learning Torah, by accepting Torah through learning it. Ulefi masha kasafti, move on hativ. Now we understand madua bachar bishvil zeh dafka parshas Porah Aduma. Now we know why dafka Porah Aduma was chosen. It's not about the mitzvah, right? Shahari mi parsha zu anu lamdim, we learn she'ein anu mekayim et ha-mitzvot Hashem. We don't fulfill the mitzvahs Hashem mishum shanu mevinim otam b'sichlenu, because we understand it, right? People are going to say sometimes, well, I'm only going to do this. I don't understand it. I don't have to do it. If I understand it, I'll do it, right? Right? That's the generation we live in today, right? There's no there's a negation of authority, right? If it sounds good to me, it makes sense. You know, this mitzvah I'll do, right? No. That's not what Torah is all about. That's the uniqueness of Porah Aduma. Not because I understand it with my seichel, my logic. V'heim nir'im lanu hagonim unechonim. They seem to me to be okay. El hadarabah, just the opposite. Kan yesh lanu mitzvah shekol kula nitna rak bishvil agzera gezarti. Here you have one mitzvah that's only given because I say you have to do it, because I'm telling you to do it, the Rebbeinu Shalom says. And you'll never understand really why. And we do it. And this is a proper introduction to really the whole gamut of Torah. Even though we understand it, or we might think we understand it, we do them mishum shekach tziva haborei. This is what we do. We do, in other words, mitzvah. The ultimate reason to perform a mitzvah is because it's a mitzvah, right? I've often said, what's the definition of the word mitzvah? What's the definition of mitzvah? Right? What's the definition of mitzvah? Right? Right? Commandment, that's a translation. What's the definition of mitzvah? The Maral says the definition of mitzvah is Ratzon Hashem. This is the desire, the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will is that women should do this mitzvah, men should do these mitzvahs. Women don't do this mitzvah, men don't do these mitzvahs. Right? Kohanim do these mitzvahs, non-Kohanim don't do these mitzvahs. That's Ratzon Hashem. It's fulfilling the will of the Ribbono Shel Olam. That is ultimately the reason for every single mitzvah we do. Because truth be told, those reasons that the Sefer HaChinuch and many other Rishonim offer, there's another word for, I think I might have even mentioned this last week, the word Tam HaMitzvah. Tam HaMitzvah has two meanings. The reason, Tam means a reason. What's the other meaning of the word Tam? To taste. It's a taste of the mitzvah. It's not the entire reason. Don't think for a moment that we have a full grasp of every mitzvah. The Tam, we have the taste of it. For some mitzvahs, it's more understanding. The mitzvah of Kibbud Av V'Em, right? We can certainly understand, as the Chinuch says, that parents give children the three basic things in life. They give them shelter, they give them food, right? They give them, they give them security, right? They raise them, right? So it makes sense, right? But there has to be more to it too. There is much more to it, right? Okay. Then he adds a PS here.
Rabbi, but
I tell you, we're recording. If you don't mind, whoever's asking the question, if you'd wait till the end because we're recording. Thank you very much. So, we have to understand Masha Darshu Chazal, a Gemara in Brachas, which will pasuk lahalon. The next pasuk, it says in this parsha, Zot HaTorah. In summing up this concept of Paraduma, the Torah says, Zot HaTorah, this is the Torah. Adam ki yamut ba'ohel, a person who died at home, she'ein HaTorah mitkayemet. So in other words, this is the law of how we deal with someone who passed away, the laws of purifying someone who happened to be present in the residence where the person died, right? But the Gemara darshans this pasuk says something else on this pasuk. Adam ki yamut ba'ohel, a man who dies in his house. She'ein haTorah mikayemet, Torah will not survive. One will not be successful with the study of Torah until a person is prepared to give his life for Torah, right? Ultimately, the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, right? But one has to sacrifice. One has to work very hard and struggle to understand Torah. To this point, right? A powerful drasha, right? Now he's asking a question here, Rabbi Yaakov Tamua. All right, that's very nice. You have to go to the nth degree of understanding to working and understanding Torah, right? But it's very strange. My shayete high drasha. Why put this drasha together with parsha with the Paraduma, right? This drasha of learning Torah to the nth degree. Why is that mentioned here with the mitzvah of Paraduma? Why take a pasuk from Paraduma? Adam ki yamut ba'ohel, right? V'chi lo haya mistaver yoter lemidrash drasa. I mean, I want to just tell you, eschataya ni maskar yom. I remember back about 100 years ago when I was in the Beis Medrash in Yeshiva, and somebody said you have a telephone call on the payphones. Anybody know what a payphone is? So the payphone in the yeshiva, so I had a phone call. So I got up and I'm walking out. And as I was walking out, one of the Rabbi, Rav Kalevsky, Zatzal, was at the back of the Beis Medrash looking at something up in a sefer, and he saw me going out. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, somebody called me, I have a phone call. He said, "How can you leave the Beis Medrash?" Right? And he darshaned this pasuk. Ein Torah mitkayemes ela b'misha memis. Your phone call for you, you're not alive anymore. You're not here. That's what they have to tell him. Ein haTorah mitkayemet ela b'misha memis atzmo alav. You go to take that phone call, you can take away 5 minutes from learning Torah, right? The mice I remember from a long time ago. But here's the question. You can make this drasha, it's a nice drasha. From the Parshat, V'shinantam levanecha, teach your children. and many other psukim in the Torah, right? From Shnav, Shinantam Levanecho. There are all kinds of psukim you can make this drasha, right? Avalafizeh, Asi Shaper. But according to what we're saying here, it makes a lot of sense. The Kivan the Nemra Parsha Zubishvil Lahachinam Lekabbalat Torah. Since this whole parsha is about an introduction to the study of Torah, to the understanding of Torah, ulahorot lehem, and to teach us ki haTorah lamaila misichlenu umihavonatenu, and ultimately the Torah is beyond our full total under our grasp. Lechein nirmaz lehem b'parsha zu gufa. So dafka necessarily in the mitzvah of paraduma is this message, this ethical message, this drush is given. She'ef shar lehem lahasig at amkut haTorah. It's impossible to understand the depth of Torah. Elim kein al yadei rov amal v'yagia, unless one really rolls up his sleeves and works very hard at it and focuses completely on it. Okay, that's Rabbi Yaakov. Okay, last week we mentioned something from Rav Yonas and David in a sefer. I'm sorry. No. That's something else. No, that's next week. Okay. No, this is from Bud Kodesh. This is a sefer that Rav Beryl Provarsky, the Panovich Rosh Hashiva, we used to, many years ago, we quoted him very often, and maybe we should come back to him. But I want to share with you a thought from Rav Dov Provarsky, the Rosh Hashiva of Panovich, and it's on there are many things in this parsha, as you know, hitting the rock, Moshe hitting the rock, but the death of Miriam is what we're going to focus on. But Tamat Miriam, but Tikaver Sham, Miriam died. She was buried there. Remember, in the schut of Miriam, we had the well, so there was no water. Miriam died. They buried her. There was no water. V'yikalu al Moshe v'el, and the Bnei Israel immediately complained to Moshe and Aaron, we're going to die. We're not going to have water, right? Amru Chazal. The rabbis say it's a Gemara Tainas. Mikan shekol 40 shana haya lahem habe'er b'schut Miriam. The 40 years in the desert, we had water. We had the water of Miriam's well, which miraculously moved with us. In the schut of Miriam, we had water. Who appears Rashi Khan? Rashi actually mentions this here. Ubekli Yakar, in the Kli Yakar commentary, Kazavi writes, quote, V'lo hayamayim le'eda, there was no water for the tzibur. Al tzad ha'onesh, this is a punishment. Chasr hamayim, we were punished. Lefi shelo hispidua karoi, because Klal Yisrael did not give her a proper hesped. Miriam was not eulogized properly. And that's why it was a punishment, right? Ki b'Moshe v'Aaron nemar v'yifku otam b'nei Yisrael, right? V'yifku otam b'nei Yisrael, v'yifku b'dam beit Yisrael, by Moshe and by Aaron. But kan lo nemar v'yifku otam. It doesn't say people cried for her. A hesped brings out the tears. There was no crying. V'nishkacha kemet milev v'lo hirgishu v'hadara klal. So she was like forgotten, right? From the heart, from the mind, right? Absence, a vacuum. Al kain nechseru lehem hamayim. So we created a vacuum with Miriam by not being eulogizing her. So the vacuum water was taken away from us, right? V'hinei. He wants to ask a question. He's going to ask 3 questions here, actually. V'pshuto nira midvarav shahaya ke'onish al mashalo hispidua karoi. It would appear this is a punishment, that we were not maspid her properly. Shenichasru et habe'er. Therefore, we lost the well. But that's not so simple. V'pashdut nira kedivri Chazal. From the rabbis, the words of Chazal, shekol kiyum habe'er haya b'schuta shel Miriam. The whole merit of the well of water was because of Miriam. When she died, there's no reason to have the well anymore, right? Not a punishment al inyan zeh shelo hispidua, that we didn't eulogize her properly. It was that Miriam was gone, the well is gone. How do we understand these two reasons, right? Question number two. The Gemara Tainus, there's another Gemara that says, Im Amrinan the Haber Chazar Lehem B'schut Moshe ve'Aaron. The water well came back to us in the schut of Moshe and Aaron, the song at the well. The pasuk lahala. We'll see later on. Az Yashir Yisrael, Jewish people sang at Hashira Azot, this song at the well. Ale Be'er, come well. Inula Be'er. Call out to us, right? Chafruha Sarim. You were dug by princes. Who are the Sarim? Right? That's Moshe and Aaron. That the well returned through the schut of Moshe and Aaron. Ubekliyakar Sham Kasav, the Kliyakar writes, Delo Sharu Shirazot Betchilat Arba'im Shana. They didn't sing this song at the beginning of the 40 years in appreciation of the well. Mipnei Sha'amru Shirazot Al Moshe Shechazar Haber B'schuto Achar Shepaska B'midas Aaron. This song was sung at the end of the 40 years because the well came back in the schut of Moshe and Aaron. Umiatat Tzarachiyah. Now we have a real problem. Madua Nikreit HaBe'er B'chol Makom Be'er Miriam. Why is it called the Be'er Miriam, the well of Miriam? V'alo hayazeh gam be'eram shel Moshe v'Aaron. It was also the well of Moshe and Aaron. Kimo shel Miriam. Umadua Nikreit al Shma Yoter. The well came back, right? Maybe you can even say more Moshe and Aaron. It's much harder to rebuild something than to build something the first time, so to speak, right? But that's the second question. So the first question: why the absence of the well? The death of Miriam? She was responsible, her schut, her merit, or that we weren't maspid her, punishment. And the well, why is it called Be'er Miriam and not Be'er Moshe Aaron? Miriam, Moshe, and Aaron. Nir Levarer. Alpima De'ita B'Sanhedrin. I'm going to start explaining this based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin. I'm going to ask another question. Al Pasuk in Bereshis it says, "Vayihi l'shivat hayamim u'mea mabul hayal aretz." At the end, when the flood was over, the waters were going to subside. Noach and the Teva were going to come back onto dry land, right? But the Baruch took another week after the flood stopped. There were another 7 days. What were these 7 days? Amarav, Elu Shivat Yemei Avelut, the Meshuselach. These were the 7 days, the Shiva of Meshuselach, who was a tzaddik. This was the 7-day period for Meshuselach that in what was that? Milalamedcha, to teach you. Shehespedan shel tzaddik. What did they do during these 7 days? They were hespedim. Noach gave hespedim. There were eulogies. There was mourning. Hespedan shel tzaddikim ma'akevet aporonis. That if being maspid, eulogizing a tzaddik, takes away puranis, takes away bad things, bad tidings, floods. This is going to be the end. This is what's going to bring about the end of this terrible period for the world. Ubira Marsha, the Marsha explains, one of the commentaries, the Al Yedei Hespedo Shel Tzadik, through the eulogy of a righteous person, Ulai Yachzaru B'tshuva. What's the whole idea here? Because when one hears a eulogy, right, he wants to do tshuva. We're confronted. Shlomo Melech said, better to go to a funeral than to go to a wedding, right? It's a stark reminder to us of the temporality of life, right? And to make changes in our life, right? Going to a wedding is a beautiful thing. It's a simcha and so on. But a funeral, it's you're looking straight into your face. You're looking at the mortality of man, right? So maybe a person will do tshuva. That's what a hesped is designed for. One of the reasons, and it's going to take away bad tidings. It'll remove bad tidings in our lives, right? By listening to us. Let me expand on what the Marsha is saying. According to this Nimsa, the tshuva that tshuva is what removes calamity, right? But Miloshana Gemara mashma hahefsid shal tzadik gufahu ma'akev edaber. But the Gemara said it's the hesped, giving the meaningful hesped for a righteous person, giving a hesped for a righteous person. That is what removes calamity from the world. It's a great mitzvah to give a hesped for a righteous person. Then you're bringing an awareness of good things and good deeds and a good life to the world, to humanity. But the Gemara, he's saying the Maharsha says no. It's the tshuva that is the creation of the hesped, that's inspired by the hesped, that brings about the end of calamity. We got to think about it. So he writes. Begins to answer. And I said about this in Parshas Noah. Al pima de isa begemara sham le'el mina, another Gemara. The kol's man shahaya mishusalach. As long as Meshusalach was alive, the great Meshusalach was a tzaddik as long as he was alive. Lo higia lemabel hamabel ola. There was no mabel. He was such a righteous person that it was because of Meshusalach, not Noah, because of Meshusalach that the flood did not come. Umipnei shezuchuto ubhashpato, his merit and his influence, shel Meshusalach, higina al hador kulo. It protected the entire generation. L'hatzilam shelo yavo hamabel aleim, to protect them, that the flood would not come. Over the page. V'al kein nemar sham, therefore it says the b'chayim mishusalach lo haya mabel. There was not a flood. Af shahayu ru'uyim sheyigal hamabel mitzad etzmam. We were at that point. The world was ready for the flood. Baruch had enough. The flood was going to destroy the world. The world was so evil that the flood was ready to come. But the Rebbeinu Shalom waited, right? Shahayu malei risha v'chamas. The world was full of evil. Mikom makom zchuto v'hashpato shel Meshusalach. The righteousness of Meshusalach ishpia aleim shelo yavo hamabel aleim, that the flood would not come. V'hine la'achar shemeis Meshusalach hayetzarach hamabel lavo miyad la'ola. Once Meshusalach died, the flood had to come immediately. Aval b'schut shivat hayamim, right? So I actually said it backwards. It was the 7 days before the flood came. Hispedam shel tzadikim, the hesped for the tzadikim, she mahut hahesped, the essence of the hesped itself, the eulogy itself, hu ha'idbonenut b'maaseyem v'darkam hatovim shel tzadikim. In other words, to bring out the glory of tzaddikim, that's what the hesped is, to bring out the glory of the greatness of Meshusalach, b'ktei lilmod mehem, to learn from them. Zeh moel shadayin lo nistalek hakadusha v'hashpah shel tzaddik. You know what that means? That means that he's still living. It means that Meshusalach is still living. If you can give a hesped, if one can give a hesped and inspire people in the life of the person who passed away to take on the kind of lifestyle that person took, then that person is still alive. V'zehu ma shenemar hespedan shel tzadikim, and that's what it means, that the eulogy of a righteous person, ma'akevet et haparonis, will take away bad tidings, take away calamity. Shaguf inyan hesped, the essence of the eulogy, hu ha'mekasher lahatzadik adayin nishar ba'ashpato b'olam hazeh shelo imanu, that tzaddik is still alive in a certain sense, living through his lifestyle is being lived. He is alive. Yishuv yesh ota haschut sheyesh b'chayav shatzadik magen alein, that the life of the tzaddik is now protecting us. In a certain sense, he's alive. So you have a synthesis here of tzaddik and hesped, right? Is it the hesped? Right? Is it the tshuva? It's the same thing, right? It's the tzaddik and his lifestyle and the power of the hesped, right, which brings about tshuva. It's all one thing, but it's because bringing the tzaddik, the righteous person, is alive with us, right? Ve'ev shalom, or let's say further, shazeu abir gamkein etzel Miriam. Now that's the whole story with Miriam. Sha'amru machmat shalo ispidua kiroi. They didn't give a proper eulogy for Miriam. I'm sure they did give a eulogy, right? They didn't give a proper eulogy. L'chein nistalek habe'er, the bear was gone. Miriam is gone. the be'er was gone. But Hikshinu, and we asked, what's going on? It was all because of her merit that we didn't have the bear anymore, not because we weren't eulogizing her. Since she died, the whole merit of the bear, the well, is gone. What do you mean the hesped? No. According to what we're saying, Niradal Kolponim, if imhayu maspidimo takara, if we would have given a proper hesped, a proper farewell to Miriam to point out her greatness, and that we can aspire to that greatness, the well would continue. The schut, the well of Miriam would continue. It would not have stopped. The hesped, because Miriam would still be alive. The schut of Miriam would still exist, would be extended beyond her physical death. Right? And the well also would have continued. But because they didn't give that eulogy, right? They didn't bring out, it's the same thing. It's the schut of Miriam and the hesped of the schut. The hesped draws the schut of Miriam into our lives, into our world, into time, even after she has left the world physically. Nistalek haber legamri. Because we didn't do it, the be'er was gone. Umevur lefizet comes out according to this. Gamkein masha amru de chazar haber b'schut Moshe ve'Aaron. That second question we asked, that the be'er also came to us not just because of Miriam, but by Moshe and Aaron, tzarechiyun. The imkein lama nikra haber al shem Miriam. Why is it called the be'er of Miriam? Achein. Lefi masha, whatever we said, Yeshlomar, the masha chazer b'schutam, zeh mishum shehem himshichu et hashpata shel Miriam. That Moshe and Aaron, it wasn't Moshe and Aaron's, well, they were the ones who took it upon themselves to bring back the well of Miriam, mimena, v'hishpiu la'acherim, to give it over to the world, who connected zeh chazar haber. It came back because they prayed to have the well of Miriam come back. Right? And Miriam nimtzeit. It's as if Miriam was still alive. The kocha, uschuta, her power, her spiritual powers, right? Uschuta, her merit, ha'alim adayin ba'olam, and it will still exist in the world for those people who lived after her but heard the hesped.